It is my pleasure to introduce someone whom most of you may know very well. Most of you may have heard of, I'm sure have heard of, uh, as being an icon of an area which was hardly talked of when we were students, uh, and that is cricket and sports and cricket. Of course, though he began with sports and cricket, his work has gone far beyond that now into various dimensions. I have the pleasure of introducing Mr. George Abraham, a very old friend. Uh, again, uh, a small secret that George and I were together in college at St. Stephen's College, and George was 1 year my senior then, and we have been friends since then, and the friendship has never has always grown, has never faded. I'm also so happy to share with you when George began his work in the disability sector, we used to interact a lot and attended a number of meetings and conferences together, and we have been in touch ever since on various other issues. He's a good friend of AICD and a personal friend as well. George, as we know, is the CEO of Sport Foundation, uh, and has contributed as not just in the area of sports, but in media, in communication. He has done a serial on television. He's done a program on the radio. We all aware, and he's also worked before he started actively participating in the disability sector. He has worked very actively with an advertising agency as a professional. So he has a vast experience and a range of success in many areas, different kind of success in different kind of areas. And yet he is a wonderful human being and a very warm person. Welcome, George. The floor is all yours on communication and networking and management of media and social media. Again, same request, if you could speak for 30, 35 minutes, we'll give you the other 2, 3 minutes before, and then we need some time for the question.
Thank you, Anil, for having me on this training program. And it's a privilege to always be part of any program that the All India Confederation of the Blind organizes. Normally, I have been invited to speak to women most of the time. So this is a rare privilege that I'm speaking to a group of leaders from different organizations from the South. So I also belong to the South. I belong to the state of Kerala and have been living in Delhi ever since 1976. So I'm more a North Indian than a Malayali. And in fact, when I go to Kerala and speak in Malayalam, people normally reply to me in Hindi. So that's a brief introduction to me. As Anil said, I have had my connect with communication formally right from 1982 onwards when I started working in the advertising agencies. But even earlier in life, right from my school days, I was initiated into areas like elocution, essay writing, and debates. And these were areas that actually I was passionate about. And so I always believe that communication is a necessary part of any leader personality. And I think there needs to be a passion for communication because communication otherwise doesn't come very easy. And when you say you want to be a communicator, you're not only you love speaking, but you also love people, because one of the things that draws you to other people, draws you to be a communicator, is your love to connect with people and be with people, and to communicate and convey what is in your mind. So that is the thing. And what I'm going to do today is, since the topic is communication and networking, and also the element of media and social media. So I'm going to connect what I'm going to say with experiences of from life, where I've found communication very, very necessary and very, very useful, and I've been reasonably effective. I don't. I'm a passionate communicator, but I don't call myself an expert I will share what I've learned over the years, and I hope I'm able to articulate it effectively so that you are able to take something concrete away from this afternoon. There are 4 points. There are 4 points I'd like to say up front. Any person you meet is potentially a friend. Any people you meet is potentially a change agent. Any person you meet is potentially a resource, and any person you meet has a network. So this is something which I think all of us need to kind of get into our system, because everybody is potentially a friend, potentially a change agent, potentially a resource, and comes with a network. All of us have networks. And the question is, do we use that network? So when I started my area of work, which is when I decided in 1989 that I wanted to work with people like me, uh, I kind of had no idea as to what I would be doing and where I would be going, and what is it that I need to do. The only thing I knew was that I was fortunate and I had opportunities, and I had traveled a certain distance in life with a fair amount of success. And I had, unfortunately, though I had met people like Anil and Rajesh Singha and so on during my student days, uh, during my working days and earlier life, I had very little opportunity to interact with a large number of visually impaired people. The odd person, of course, one would meet here and there. And it was only in 1988, 89 that I had the privilege of visiting certain organizations for the blind in some part of India. And that's when I realized how fortunate I was. And I felt that I needed to do something. But what was the big question? I didn't know what it was. And I was very clear that I would like to take up work which also aligns with my passions as a person, because life is very difficult, and especially projects in the social sector. uh, you know you come every moment, every second step you have a hurdle, and there is a struggle. And if you're passionate about something and you are you have conviction and you're moving forward with total commitment, it's only then that you have the willpower to kind of stay and fight and travel the distance. So I was very clear that I needed to be passionate about whatever project I start with. And so I was wondering what to do. So I went to my boss in advertising and I said, I've decided to quit, and this is what I want to do, and where do I start? And the whole intent was to kind of tap into his network if there was any person that he knew that was relevant to my ideas and my desire of going forward. And he said, he mentioned a couple of names. He mentioned that there is a former Joint Secretary of the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, who's now the Cultural Secretary. Maybe I will introduce you to him. And you could meet him and just have a chat. So that was the beginning of my networking when it came to working in the disability sector. So I went and met with the gentleman. I had spent half an hour with him. It turned out that he also was a Stephanian, and we connected. Now, when you network with people, networking is not just about meeting people and getting them to help you. Networking is about meeting up with people and building a relationship with them, connecting. It's not a one-time connect, because it's an ongoing relationship. And even the initial connect, sometimes it becomes very difficult because people are busy, people don't have the time, people don't like the domain in which are not interested in the domain in which you're working, and they're not interested in discussing that. So you have to find a way of connecting with the relevant people so that they have time for you. So here, I think the first step was that my boss's introduction that had opened the door. And then the fact that we both had the same alma mater, which is St. Stephen's College, also helped. So we started talking, and he gave me half an hour, and he suggested that I went and met the Joint Secretary in the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. So I did that. He picked up the phone, made a call, and fixed an appointment for me. So I went next to the minister to the joint secretary in the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. And one of the things about St. Stephen's College in the 60s, 70s, 80s was that a lot of people who came out of that college were in the bureaucracy. There were a lot of IAS officers, IPS officers, senior officers in the IRS and so on. So the old college network itself is a very powerful network. So when I walked into this gentleman's office and started talking, and he suddenly said, George, I believe you are from St. Stephen's. I said, yeah. He said, well, I am also a Stephanian. I'm from the 60s. I said, wow, that's good. Then we started talking, and then he said, George, I think the first thing you need to do is to meet up with certain leaders in the blindness, in the sector where, organizations for the blind. And he mentioned a list of around 10, 12 people in Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, Dehradun, Bangalore. And he said, my advice would be that you meet up with these people and then make a visit to NIVH in Dehradun, spend a few days there, and then take a call on what you want to do. So I said this was very, very good advice. So I started moving on to my next network, which was the 12 odd people that he had mentioned. And he said that if you want any introduction, I'm happy to do so. So I said, yes, I don't know any of these people. So he started connecting me one by one. So one was Mr. Lal Advani, who is considered to be the father of the disability movement in India. He was probably the first government official who was disabled, who joined the government in the early 1950s. Worked with Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, who was the minister for, I think he was the man who was the minister for social welfare at that point of time. The ministry was called social. So that's where I began, and then I met all these people and got to know 10 to 12 people, and I like meeting people. And so when I meet somebody, I kind of make sure that I also kind of connect and build up the relationship. So most of the 12 people I met, of course, a few of them are no more now, but most of the people I met, they are friends of mine now. And so that was one. Then I went to Dehradun, and I was introduced to Mr. A.K. Mittal, who Anil Aneja had. I'm not saying Professor Anil Aneja because, as he told you, I was 1 year senior to him, and he's a friend. So I think I can take the liberty of saying Anil Aneja.
Of course.
So anyway, no, before people misunderstand. So let me clarify that. Okay, so so I went to so I was due to go to Dehradun for the joint secretary said, do you know Mr. Mittal? So I said no. So he gave me an introduction with Mr. Mittal, and Mr. Mittal was coming to Delhi. So Mr. Mittal told me that I'll be driving back to Dehradun on so-and-so date, so you can come along with me, meet me at Mr. Lal Advani's office at so-and-so time. So that's where I met him, and we started, and that was the beginning of a fantastic relationship because we had a lot of things in common. Both of us loved talking. Both of us loved cricket. Both of us loved the broadcast, reading books, using audio books. So there was a lot to talk about. And that's another thing which I like to state here is to when you become a communicator and when you have to communicate and sustain a relationship with somebody, you need to have topics that you can talk about, which means that you need to be aware of what's happening around the world. You need to have interest in things that others are interested in, because that is the point at which you connect with people. Otherwise, what happens is you go to the person with your cause, you speak about the cause, and the conversation ends over there. And then, so it's important that you're able to kind of carry on a relationship with the person. And after the first and second and third meeting, you're not a government official and an NGO leader connecting with each other. You're two friends connecting with each other. And that makes, movement through government departments, movement through through corporate India movement, through other organizations, much easier. It's about building friends. Networking is a very impersonal word. It's about making friends. And one of the things I've noticed is that you have to be able to connect with people in their interest area. Otherwise, your relationship would be very, very limited. I like to give you a quick story here again. I was once traveling by a DTC bus from Delhi University to the Delhi Zoo. A friend and I, we were very keen on going to the zoo, and we had never been to the zoo, and we were relatively new to Delhi. So my friend was sitting behind me and I was sitting here, and there was a lady sitting on my right. So after a while, I told the lady, "Dekhiye, aisa hai." In Hindi, I told her that I'm going to the Chidiyaghar, which is the zoo. When you come to that stop, can you tell me? So she just looked out of the window. She ignored me. So after a while, I tried again. This time I spoke to her in English. The same results. Then I was wondering, what to do. Meaning, if we pass the zoo and things, we'll have to cross the road and take a bus back. So after a while, I heard this lady talking to the lady behind, and they were talking in Malayalam. So I immediately started speaking to her in Malayalam, and the woman just changed. She got very excited and she said, well, get off at the next stop, otherwise you will miss it. And she also got off with us, and we went beyond helping. So, what a connection can do is phenomenal. Once I remember I was working with this advertising company called ASP, Advertising and Sales Promotion Company, and I was handling the Asian Games account. And one day I was asked to go and meet a gentleman at the Asian Games office, and I was supposed to present a little booklet that we had created. So I walked in and I introduced myself, and he said, "Okay, please sit down." So after 2-3 sentences, I suddenly stopped him. "Excuse me, sir, can I say something if you don't mind? Have you ever tried voicing for an ad or using your voice for All India Radio?" He said, "Why?" I said, "You have a lovely voice, and it's fantastic. Deep. It's got the Amitabh Bachchan kind of tone, and you won't believe it. After that, he became my friend for life. So after that, dealing with him became so easy. So when you network, you got to constantly look at how you can go beyond the connect. Is it just about doing your business, or is it about getting to know somebody and building a friend? And so this is one thing. And then so then I went on to Dehradun with Mittal Saab, and then on the second or third day, I was woken up to the sound of some kids playing cricket. So I was wondering, in a blind school, how come people are playing cricket? So I went out, and since I am also visually impaired, partially sighted, so I went very close, and then I found a bunch of blind kids playing cricket, and that was fascinating for me. So I spoke to the umpire, who was a sighted person, and he told me about the passion for this game. And believe me, friends, I am a cricket lover, and I get up at 2 in the morning when India is traveling to New Zealand to listen to the commentary. And 3:01 p.m. 3 notifications. So that was the level of passion I had for the game. So I decided to promote cricket for the blind as a national tournament, because at a national level, because I felt that cricket had the potential of communicating talent, ability, and potential of the blind. I also realized that media would be interested in cricket cricket because of the kind of popularity it has in this country. I also realized that people would come to watch it, and so on. And I realized that cricket also afforded blind people the opportunity to travel and see places. And I find even traveling and seeing places is very educative. So I decided to promote it, and I realized networking came into play when it came to getting the blind schools and organizations across the country interested in my idea of a national tournament. Now, I was a nobody knew me. And if I wrote to somebody, if I wrote to Anil Aneja and he didn't know me, and I wrote about an idea which was never talked about before, the chances are there's a 70-30 chance, where 30 is he would probably accept it, 70% chance that he would say, "There's some joker who's just kind of talking from the top of his head." And also the fact that since it hadn't been promoted so aggressively and at a national level, I realized that people didn't think this was a great idea. So I needed to bring in some kind of a communication behind it so that people would get excited by it. So I decided the best thing to do is I approached Kapil Dev and Sunil Gavaskar, and I uh, kind of told them that this is the idea. And I showed them pictures that I had taken in Dehradun of kids playing cricket. So they got interested, but they said, we don't have the time. We will give you you can use our names as we are patrons. So I started every letter to the blind school saying, dear sir, I'm so-and-so, and I've set up this organization. I had set up SCORE at that point of time. And I said, we are planning to organize the first national cricket tournament where legendary cricketers like Sunil Gavaskar and Kapil Dev are patrons to this tournament. And I gave details and blah, 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 blah. And believe it or not, I got about 75 letters back, all excited. This is a great idea. We would like to participate. Give us more details, blah, blah, blah. So I realized that communication and, being creative in your communication to be able to reach out to people. And as Vinod Benjamin said, written communication is very often very, very important, because very often you have to communicate with people whom you can't reach on a face-to-face basis. So you have to write to them. And so the Cricket for the Blind happened. And then in 1996, in 1993, I had said that we will organize a World Cup. Now the question is, how do I connect with organizations internationally? So the idea which came to me was to write to all the high commissions in India of countries where cricket is played. So again, I spent a lot of time drafting my letter. Opening paragraphs are very, very important, because people normally read the first few lines, and if it is very, very mundane and it's sent by somebody you don't know, then you tend to kind of garbage the letter. So it's important to catch the attention right at the beginning. And as Vinod Benjamin said, be as concise or as brief as possible, and making sure that you say what is important. So what was important for me was, we were planning to organize a World Cup of Cricket for the Blind. I wanted to connect with organizations in Australia or England or South Africa or Pakistan or wherever, with organizations that were involved with sports for the blind. So I mentioned the important elements right at the beginning. And you won't believe it, I faxed it to these people. And within 15 minutes, I got a response from the Australian High Commission. And within 1 hour, I was speaking on the phone with the organization in Australia that was involved with Cricket for the Blind. And within 3 days, I had actually decided to go to Australia, because they invited me to go to Australia and speak to the Australian Blind Cricket Council. So things started moving very quickly. So, so that is, the importance of writing, the importance of connecting with people, importance of maintaining relationships. Now, I'd like to move to another area where, again, since my topic is networking primarily, so I would now talk about the Delhi Half Marathon, which took place in 2019. Now, I have been running the Delhi Half Marathon since its beginning. It's not because I'm a very, very passionate runner. I like running. I did running while I was in college as well. But I was using the marathon to raise money for SCORE Foundation and our project iWay. So fundraising, I found I have found over the years that networking is very, very critical. So in 2019, when I started my campaign for fundraising for the Delhi Half Marathon, the first thing I did was I listed out I listed my networks. So I went to my college network, I went to my school network, I went to my advertising network. There are 2 agencies I worked for. So both the agencies, I went back to them. And then I went to people I've got to know during the cricket World Cups and the cricket tournaments. I've met a lot of people in government, in corporate India and so on. And I went back to people in my church because I'm a Christian. I go to church every Sunday. I have a lot of friends and connections through the church. So I tapped into that connection. I also tapped into people in the neighborhood, in the colony where I live, started tapping in there. So these were all the networks that I had that I started tapping into. Then I identified people whom I thought were highly networked. I asked them, will you be interested in running for SCORE Foundation and raising money for us? I spoke to about 20 people, about 5 people agreed to run for us. So, the next step was, okay, we all are going to run. Now, how do we actually raise money? So we had to communicate. So one of my friends from advertising said, let us create a 1-minute film. So they got a film made on me where I was running on the treadmill. I was running on using a cross trainer. I was skipping. I was doing some running on the lawn outside. And I just spoke in 4 lines about what SCORE Foundation does and why I'm running, and requesting for, appealing for funds. And then we started sending it out on WhatsApp. And WhatsApp is a very powerful way of connecting with people. Most people, now when it comes to fundraising, you're looking at people with deep pockets. So all people with deep pockets use a smartphone, and then they would use WhatsApp. Of course, this was before Signal and Telegram came into the picture. Now, of course, if you're sending out messages on WhatsApp, you also have to send messages out on Telegram and Signal, which are also kind of communicating, two-way communicating tools. Signal and Telegram are also just like WhatsApp. So we sent out these messages with the film, link of the film on WhatsApp. Then I put up the film and the message on Facebook. So I have a page on Facebook, so I put it on that page. I'm also part of my old school alumni Facebook page, so I put up the appeal over there. Then I am a member of the St. Stephen's College has about 4 or 5 Facebook pages, different groups. So I put my message with the appeal on each of them. And then the Ogilvy and Mather, the company for which I worked, they had a WhatsApp group. So I sent out, it's an alumni of the Ogilvy and Mather. So I sent out WhatsApp appeals to them. And then I sent out to my other company also, ASP, where I work. And the long and short of it was that in 2 months' time, I raised close to 20 lakhs. And, just by running 10 kilometers and going through this communication exercise, because I reached out to my networks. Now, many of the people who supported me were people who knew friends of mine. Some of them were my friends. Some of them were friends of mine. So when these people I did not know also contributed, I took the opportunity of getting to know them. I kind of found them out on Facebook. I connected with them and I spoke to them and, started a relationship. So what would happen is in 2021 or 22, when I run my next Delhi Half Marathon, I would be able to reach out to a much bigger group of people who will be willing to support us. So networking is great when it comes to raising money. Networking is great when it comes to getting proposals through in the government or through in, it depends on where you're building your network and your relationships. So it helps you get quality people to work with you. It helps you find volunteers who are willing to come and work with you. And it helps you find support for whatever work you're doing. Now, networking also can start with people who are already working for you. There are people within your organization and within your company who will not be working with you for life. They might work with you for 2 years, 3 years, and then they would leave. So, like for example, there was this young lady who worked with me for 3 years, and she left and she joined the Hunts Foundation. And 2 weeks later, she calls me up and says, sir, why don't you come and meet up with so-and-so at the Hans Foundation? They might be interested in funding you. So sure enough, I went across and we started a funding relationship. So it's important to actually build relationships with your employees. When you go to an office, it's always good to say hello to even the guy at the gate, the guard at the gate. जो कौन है, कैसे भाई, चमन लाल जी कैसे हैं आप, बीबी बच्चे कैसे हैं, ठीक है, very good, और दिवाली कैसा रहा, just say that and then go in, and you'll suddenly find that next time you go, the guy is all excited to kind of welcome you. And the third time you go, you want to find out, you're gate crashing and you want to find out where the man you want to meet is in the office. He has told you on the phone, I'm traveling. You can ask him and he said, "Hey, saab, andar baitha hua hai." So, so nobody is unimportant in your mission when you're going out to work, when you're working in the social sector, when you're working in the blind sector. It is important to build relationship right from the lowest level to the top. And each person will be a friend, an ally of yours in your work and in your journey in different ways. So I think building relationships is very, very critical. Then the other thing which I must share with you is, at SCORE Foundation, a lot of work we do is we don't do any direct programs. We don't run a computer training program. We don't have a skill development program. We don't run a school. We don't have people. We don't deal with people directly. We run a helpline. We run the iWay helpline, and we communicate. We write articles in the newspapers. We use social media. So people, if they visit us or they talk to us, they say, "Oh, this communication is great, awareness building is great, but what do you actually do?" So it's very difficult to get funding that way, So what we do is we have developed a property called the Friday Communication. So every Friday, so people call us up, many of them call us up, and their experience of calling us up is life-changing. Because very often they call up with a piece of information they want.
George, if I may request you in 2-3 minutes to wind up, because then we have time for question answers.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure.
Please go ahead.
So these stories that we have of success stories where we have connected people, we use those stories and share it through WhatsApp to about 5,000 people. We share it by email to about 2,000 people. We share it on Facebook, we share it on Twitter, and we share it across all social media, including Instagram. And what we find then is that when you meet these people, once in a while, 6 months later you meet, they say, "Oh, you're doing great work. Is there any way we can help you with?" So to build an image of your organization, to tell people that you are running and doing great work, to tell people the issues that blind people face in life, use social media, use the media, tell stories. And then you find that people, because there is, one thing I find, please use WhatsApp, use Facebook, use Twitter, use Instagram to kind of circulate it. So maybe in the interest of time, maybe it's important that people ask questions. So maybe I could pause here, ask questions, and during the answer session, I can also maybe add additional points if necessary. But I'll just summarize over here. Number one, every person you meet is a potential friend. Every person you meet is a potential change agent. Every person you meet is a potential resource, which means he could be a volunteer, he could be a donor, or he could be, and finally, every person you meet is a potential network. He has a network and you can tap into it. So I think these are the key points. And I think every person you meet, you must endeavor to build a relationship. So and to build a relationship, you should be able to communicate with them, because communication is the basis on which relationships are built. And to communicate well, it's not only talking and communicating on the cause and issues and your needs, but it is also talking about common areas of interest And for that, I think each of us needs to be well aware, well read, well exposed, so that you're able to speak about any subject with confidence, whether it is politics, whether it's literature, whether it is science, whether it is cricket, whether it's Bollywood. So I think I'll stop here and take questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, George, for this very wonderful presentation on communication and networking. We surely have chosen an excellent speaker for this topic through your own examples and this hexagon that you have made of communication and networking. Every person is a friend, a person agent for change, resource, networker, building relationship, communication being important. I think this should really give us a very new start. I'm sure all of us many of us may be practicing all these ideas, but may not be conscious now to consciously develop these areas of networking and forming relationships, of communication, treating every person as a friend. I think these are some very important tips and would definitely help us, in our work, our AICB and affiliates. Thank you very much. It has been a pleasure listening to you as always, George. I now invite questions from the participant. You will raise hands and then you will be unmuted.
It's when you are in a communication exercise, it's important to let the other person know who you are. And there were about 5 people who were still on, either Vivo or Galaxy,
Yes.
or Readme or Redmi. So that's bad communication. That's bad communication, if you ask me.
And this is despite the fact that we had sent clear written guidelines to them, asking them to join from the real name and change the name. This was sent to them in written. So please pay attention to whatever communication and guidance come to you for any event. I'm not talking about AICB events or AICB workshop. Please read your communication, follow. People take a lot of time drafting communication. I assure you, when it's a professional work, a lot of time goes in drafting communications. Please take them seriously. Don't just ignore, because these were sent to you as guidelines. Yes, Viva. Who is the person from Viva asking question?
Sheelan from Kerala, Federation of the Blind.
Yeah. Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. George, it was very, very, very interesting. Your talk, that 4 points have attracted me. Actually, I want your guidance actually in the future also, because I had a technology. We had developed a technology for a visually impaired person to write 150 or 200 words per minute and read any printed book in the library in the cited form. But I was not in a position to communicate with anybody and spread it to the whole community, to the whole system. Yet, it is still with me, but I am at a loss because I don't know how to spread the news. So actually, this is once I had told you, I think, once I had written you, I think, George. I don't know. I don't remember. I don't know the exact time. Anyhow, I need your really this technology to be spread among the Indians. It is free of cost and everything is free here. It's in the free software area, but I'm not in a position to bring it to the community. That's why my difficulty lies with. Of course, what's your advice actually? If I had such a great idea with me, I had a technology with me and not in a position to bring it to the community. How would you respond? How would you respond?
So Satyashilan, are you the father or the son?
I'm the father. My son is developing.
Okay.
Nalin Satyan is developing all these things.
Right. Yeah. So I think it's about communication and networking. People need to know about it, and if the technology is ready, I think you should share it with us. Share it with people like Anil Aneja, and share it with people like Rungta. So people who have networks, and once they understand and see it as a good product, they will share that information. If I think that it's a great product, the technology actually is going to be unique and it's going to be making a difference, I will definitely share it on iWay to more than 5,000, 10,000 people straight away through WhatsApp messaging and emails and so on. And then maybe even help you to kind of tap into other networks. So I think it's important for you to not only share it with me, but also AICB has a huge network. NFB has a huge network. KFB has a huge network within Kerala itself. I'm sure you are aware of it. And so tap into these networks and encourage them to. Now the thing is whether what it takes to encourage them to share it is again another question that you'll have to find out. What might encourage me might be very different from what Mr. Habib what will inspire him to kind of share it. So you have to get to know us, communicate more with each of us, and sort of get our buy-in, as they say.
Oh,
but I will be happy to. But I will be happy to talk to you and know more.
Yeah.
Mr. Satyashiran, first you should get this accessibility tested. It's very important. This is development of one thing, but
it's already tested is another thing. It's already tested and promoted in Kerala, sir. But I'm not in a position.
So AICB will be in touch with you, Muthu. And Mr. Habib will be in touch. I will requesting both of them, Muthu and Habib, they'll be in touch, and we'll work this out. Definitely. Yes. Okay. Another question?
No, sir. I was expressing my gratitude to George for his wonderful, inspiring talk.
But there's one more hand.
Also very much motivated by your talk, because one of the areas that where we are struggling a lot these days is in managing financial resources. So this talk was really an eye-opener to a key talk for many of us, and we believe that we will be able to capitalize on the prospects that you have suggested in the future days. So thank you, Aneja sir, for incorporating this session in this program, and thank you, George sir, for that wonderful talk. Thank you.
To kind of thank you, Anil, for having me on the show, as they say, and I look forward to continuing this relationship with AICB, and it's very nice talking to you, Muthu Selvi.
Thank you.
I've seen your emails in Access India and so on. This is the first time I think I'm actually having a meaningful conversation with you, so it's a pleasure.
Thank you.
And I wish all the 5 partners who are kind of affiliated partners who are part of this this session, I wish them all the very best. I also saw my old friend CK Abu Baker on this.
Yes.
On the show. Is he still around?
Yeah, he's here.
You know, one of my earliest ventures in Kerala was to organize the Malayalam Manorama Cricket Championship in Calicut, and CK Abu Baker was the local big man, you know, and he organized everything locally. And then he asked his wife, "What does this guy George Abraham look like?" You remember?
So thank you very much, George. It's a real pleasure listening to you, as always. And of course, we have been great friends, AICB, and you and SCORE and I personally, professionally, you and I personally. And let's hope in the years to come, we'll strengthen both the kinds of friendships. Thank you very much. Thank you very much also, Vinod, for being there. It was a pleasure hearing of our first interaction. We surely would have you more often in our programs and in our activities. We do request to give more time to AICB.